Okay, art buddies, for this video, we're going to try something a little different. We are going to review the 2025 Superman movie while drawing from pencils, inks to colors. So let's do it. Okay, so I've seen the movie 3 times already. I saw it at the Amazon preview. A friend of mine wanted to go. The friend I usually go to the movies with, we went to see it on Thursday. And then my father, whose birthday it was the day it was released, but we couldn't go that day because of birthday stuff and weekend stuff. We went on Monday and we saw it in IMAX. I took my father for his birthday because that's what he wanted to do. And I knew just when he told me that that's what he wanted to do, that Superman was going to have a good opening weekend and probably a good box office. Because if he wanted to see it, that meant a whole bunch of people who really aren't interested in comic book movies or pop culture movies per se would want to go see it too. Alright, so let's get the elephant out of the room. I enjoyed the 2013 Man of Steel, even though it obviously had some issues. My biggest issue was the whole portrayal of Jonathan Kent, his pretty much telling Clark, basically don't do anything. You don't have to help people, let the kids in the bus die. The whole hurricane and him telling Clark not to save him and let him die when he easily, from watching that scene, could have just walked over, carried his father back, and would have had plenty of time to save his father. And, the wholesale destruction of Metropolis, all those things were kind of, he was a growing Superman, so you didn't expect him to do everything perfect, but you expect him to at least try. And I liked that movie a lot, but those were the issues I had with it. And I like Batman vs. Superman. I like the extended cut. Let me rephrase that. The initial cut's missing too much for you to actually know what the hell's going on in the movie. But the extended cut fills in a lot of those gaps, like why people are getting killed in prison because of Batman and all kinds of other things that I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember it filled in a lot of the blanks. I didn't love the Justice League with Josh Whedon, but I really did like the Snyder Cut. I sat down and sat through that at least 2 times, and I want to see it one more time because I want to see the black and white cut because I think that would be just kind of fun and noirish, and I really like that style. And I also remember going to see Black Adam because I go to a lot of the pop culture movies with a friend of mine. And the last scene, the cut scene where Superman shows up and it's Cavill, and you're like, cool, Cavill's back. And I wanted to see that movie because I saw a few interviews with Henry, and he said he wanted to be a more hopeful Superman, a brighter Superman, a more mature Superman, and that's what he wanted his next movie to be. And, well, clearly that didn't happen. And then they announced James Gunn, and I'm like, I guess Cavill's not coming back. That kind of sucks. And I was kind of in the camp, well, the boy got screwed, and he should get another chance. But, I don't get to make these decisions. And I like what James Gunn has done, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And as things started to leak and come out, and we got to see pictures of Superman and then the trailers, and I was sold. Because I knew it was going to be cheesy 80s, Silver Age Superman, and that's kind of what I wanted to see. That's what I've always wanted to see, because that was my Superman. I dug the Silver Age Superman when I was a kid, and the 80s Superman. Although John Byrne depowered him for a while, and it took him a while to get back up to strength with different writers and whatnot, but that was the Superman I read. So when I saw what James Gunn was doing, I saw that Guy Gardner was going to be in it, and Mr. Terrific, I was sold. So, you didn't have to convince me that this was going to be a good movie. But I also knew that it wouldn't be a movie for everybody, because there's going to be a lot of people who love the Snyder movies and they wanted more of that. There was going to be a lot of people who weren't going to like the, the corniness of Silver Age Superman. A Superman that's bright and hopeful and cares about people and wants to save lives, no matter what the consequences are, and doesn't really think of anything else. He just wants to keep people safe. That's how I think of Superman. Superman is hope. Superman is believing the world could be a better place. And Superman is the embodiment of all those things. So the movie starts out explaining that metahumans have been around for 300 years. Clark's spaceship crashed 30 years ago, and 3 years ago Superman made himself known to the world. And then 3 hours ago or so, he was beaten for the first time. The movie throws you right into the action. It doesn't bother with Superman's origin. It doesn't bother with the origin of any other characters. It just kind of lets it rip. And I kind of like that about that, because I think most people now, even people who aren't into comic books or comic book movies, have seen or heard Superman's origin already. They just know it. It's like common knowledge. It's like a folk story that's been passed down throughout the years. All right, so I guess we'll break down the plot of the movie, which is pretty simple. Lex Luthor basically drives the story. He hates metahumans, and he especially hates Superman because he's super powerful and he's an alien, and an alien shouldn't have that kind of power over humanity. And he goes out of his way to make sure that he could destroy Superman. He creates a fake war. He sends monsters and genetically engineered and villains that he created after him. And that's pretty much it. Lex Luthor just wants to kill Superman. That's the gist of the whole damn movie. And it's pretty simple, and it's pretty straightforward, and it does a good job of building that world. So let's talk about the characters. I guess we'll start with Superman, David Corenswet. He was Superman. He looked the part. He acted the part. He did a good job of conveying the fact that he just wants to help people. He doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't care about the optics. He doesn't care who's in charge. He just knows if people are in trouble, he is going to help them. And he's going to do what's right. Consequences be damned. And that sounds kind of like, he's kind of inflicting his will on the world, but he's not. He's just comes off as a well-natured, good person who wants to help. He mentions when he's being interviewed by Lois that he does what he does because of a message sent by his birth parents with him as a child when he came to Earth that basically told him that, he's here to help and serve humanity, which is later exploited by Lex because it turns out that they wanted a bit more than that from him, and Lex exploits that to turn the world against him. So, but then you figure out later in the movie, because he ends up having to go back to Kansas to the farmers who raised him, where he crash landed, and it turns out that they were just really good people. They were like salt of the earth, wouldn't hurt a fly. There's not a bad bone in their body, and they raised Kent with those beliefs that every life is important, that every person is important, that if you could do good, do good. If you could help, help. Serve humanity, serve your fellow man, do what you can to be a good person, and if you have the ability to help somebody, you should. And those were the values that were instilled on Clark as a child, which led to him becoming Superman. Now, Lex Luthor, on the other hand, he's an unredeemable piece of garbage in this movie. He is basically what an entitled, whiny crybaby would be in the world. He feels that his will should be imposed on the world, and he doesn't pretend any other way. He goes out of his way to frame Superman. He hates other metahumans. He flat out murders somebody, and he's willing to let a whole city full of people die just because they don't agree with him. He is the embodiment of evil in this movie as far as humans go, I think. There's no redeeming qualities to him at all. And he doesn't care about the collateral damage that he causes, whether it be personal, whether it be people's lives, whether it be property damage, as long as he achieves his goals of destroying Superman. So, yeah, he's a piece of crap. Oh, and he was played by Nicholas Hoult. I forgot to say that at the beginning of his section. And then we got Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan? I don't know. But I like the actress. I watched the marvelous Miss Maisel when it was on. I forgot what streaming service it was, but I watched all the seasons. She was great in it. And when they cast her as Lois Lane, I was all for it. I'm like, she is perfect for the role. And she was. She comes off as a hard-hitting reporter. She doesn't ask the soft questions. She goes hard even when she's talking to Clark Kent, her boyfriend, Superman. And she lays into him. And she questions everything that he does, even if she thinks that he might have been right, because she doesn't know for sure the other side of the story. Then, of course, we got Jimmy Olsen, who he's pretty funny in this because he looks like your average normal dude, and they play him off like he's some kind of like player. The girls in the Daily Planet are all over him. He has a hot ex-girlfriend who knows more about what's going on with the Superman Lex Luthor thing than she should. The hot ex-girlfriend thing, that's Lois's words, not mine. And yeah, and he advances the story because he finds out a lot of information through her to help Lois and Jimmy find Superman. The Justice Gang, they're great. They show up with no real origin, except for Guy Gardner saying a couple times that he, has to follow a code and he was chosen for this. But he's great. He's kind of like that jerk uncle who doesn't care about anything but himself, but when pushed, he always does the right thing. And that's Guy Gardner. Hawkgirl, she doesn't really do anything in the movie, so we don't really know anything about her other than she's Hawkgirl. Mr. Terrific, he's like the standout of the movie. I don't know who plays him either. I probably should have looked these things up before I did a movie review, but he's probably the best part of the movie because he decides to help Lois find Superman when the rest of the Justice Gang won't. And his reason is basically he just wants to upset Green Lantern. So that was pretty good. He has one of the best fight scenes in the whole movie, probably the best if you take my word for it. And then of course there's Krypto. Nobody plays Krypto. He's just a CGI dog, but he's a fun part of the movie, and I'm not even an animal person, and I liked what he brought to the table because, part of it is just Superman just wants to save his dog, and it's not a very good dog, but he's alone, and he's scared, and that also pretty much shows you Superman's character in this movie, that, he's willing to risk everything just to save a dog. I've seen other reviews where they talk about things that I don't necessarily agree with, and one of them is the humor. Yes, there's a lot of humor in the movie, and it comes fast in some spots and a little hard, but they say that it always undercuts the emotional beats of the movie, and that's not true. When Lois is interviewing Clark, there's a couple funny moments in it, but those moments are because of the interview and the questions she's asking him, not because something stupid happens or somebody jumps in or says an off-kilter joke that doesn't belong. It's just part of the interview. And when Superman decides he's going to turn himself in, he has a conversation with Lois and they bring up the dog, and there's a couple funny moments in it, but the emotion of the scene isn't undercut at the end when he's leaving or when the conversation starts. It's not undercut by just some random joke that just comes out of nowhere. So the humor in those scenes is actually fairly organic. The only time that did happen was at the end of the movie where Superman gives his big speech to Lex, and then Lex comes back because he won't have it, and he's mad, and, Superman, you are, and then, the funny thing happens. But that, I actually felt was earned, so it didn't bother me at all. The only parts of the movie I really didn't like weren't actually scenes or how it was written, it was more set pieces, like the war at the end where the Justice Gang shows up instead of Superman to save the day because Superman's busy dealing with Lex. It basically felt like it was a bunch of people hanging out in a quarry and they were getting attacked by the National Guard. It just looked cheap to me. The effects were fine, the tanks were fine, the Green Lantern power things were funny, but it just felt like a bunch of people hanging out in a quarry getting attacked by National Guard troops. It didn't feel like an international conflict to me. It just felt cheap and like they spent the budget elsewhere, so they couldn't afford to play that scene out right. Same thing with the Justice Gang's headquarters. It felt like you were in a train station, but it was set up so like they were just moving in, so we'll see what that looks like in the future. And one thing I'd like to say is I don't see how you could say this movie was woke. Superman's always been an alien, refugee, and immigrant who came to our country as a refugee and decided to do good and help people. So if that makes the movie woke, then I guess you haven't read a Superman comic book in the past 90 years. And, without getting into heavy spoilers, that's really all I got to say about Superman. So I would recommend going to see it. I want to go see it a fourth time. So click the like button, subscribe, and maybe I'll do another movie review. Maybe it'll go smoother because, like I said, I've never done one of these before. So if you got this far, thank you.